Your keynote speaker will be mostly unknown by most of you. Never heard of him. I just met him for the first time tonight. I want to give him a different kind of introduction because he's so used to being praised. I think I probably should roast him, but I'll leave him alone. I went back and looked at Mike Dowling's slips in the newspaper for the last week, and there were two stories that came out. And the first was one that I think only a chief executive who cares very deeply about violence and crime and what ends up in his emergency room and how that can be dealt with in a more intelligent, reasonable way. Lots of people think about it. Mike Dowling went ahead and did it. And he began this campaign against gun violence. And gun violence is the biggest single reason why people end up in the emergency room, as you all know. And Michael is attacking it from the front straight on, as he usually does. And his ambition is to make gun violence a public health issue. And he says every CEO has an obligation and a responsibility to try and end gun violence or help end gun violence any way they can. So they ran an advertisement on TV that I happened to watch, and they dressed Michael up as a ferocious tiger. Actually, that's what they called the ad, ferocious tiger. And they were comparing having a gun in your house to having a ferocious tiger that at any point could attack you or you could be a victim of it. The other thing that Michael did was just announced very casually last week that he and his staff had raised $1 billion for Northwell, which I think is incredible. And what Mike said is, we don't believe in limits. We set a goal to raise $1 billion, and we did that. And I'm sure he's added another $400 million since he last talked, in terms of what he's going to raise next year. But I just want to introduce him as a remarkable Irishman, a man who came to America with even less than I had, and I had $10. But one of the most singularly successful Irishmen. His life story would make a tremendous movie. Would you welcome, please, Michael Dowling?
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for the comments. And this is an unbelievable, beautiful place to be. If you just look around. Just to be in a place like this and just to think of the history and the background, it's pretty extraordinary. So again, it's my pleasure to be here. And I want to say a special thanks to Neil. And, the $1 billion you referenced, Neil, I need $5 billion. And I want to say thank you for everything you've been doing all over these years, and also to Patricia. Absolutely extraordinary what you have been able to continue doing. And it is great to be back in person after the last couple of years, because there is nothing better than to be able to exchange views, meet with people, shake hands without hesitation, which most people are now doing. Not everybody, but most people are doing. And if you I want people just to look around the room and take a look at who's here. This is an unbelievably impressive group of people. Irish American. And I've always believed by that Irish American is the best combination you can ever possibly have. Who we have here, we have in the room, you just think about it for a second, because the environment and the context is important. What we have here, we have nurses, we have doctors, we have researchers, we have administrators, we have educators, we have entrepreneurs. And then if you ask the question, what do we do? And just think of it and break it down into its simplest terms. What do we all do all the time? Because what you do in life defines you. It's just not who you are. It's just not the title that you have. It's not your position in an organization. It's what you do. So what do? We prolong life. We cure disease. We save lives. We discover new treatments and new therapies. We engage in extraordinary breakthroughs. We educate the future workforce. The collective of what we all do will leave a dramatic legacy. Because of what we do each and every day, tomorrow will be better. Our kids will grow up in a better place, have access to treatments and therapies not imagined even today, that we over time, and all of you, will discover. Care will be better. And the other thing that we've done is that we protect the community. We are a safety net for the community, all communities. Some, of course, we need to do better than others. Some communities we need to serve better than we're serving, and we all know that. But we protect the community. And if you just reflect for a second about what we did over the last couple of years, and I don't want to regress back into history too much, but sometimes it's important to think about what happened so that we can think about what will happen and what the future may be like. I recall in the vicinities around here and near the hospitals during COVID, when at 7 o'clock at night, people would come out of their apartments, the police and the fire would bring their vehicles, and for 10, 15 minutes, and this happened not just here, but it happened all over the region and happened increasingly across the country, the community clapped and said, thank you. They were thanking us for serving them. They were thanking us for protecting them. They were thanking us for being an inspiration to them. So let's never underestimate the importance of what it is we do each and every day. And if you think back, we did extraordinary things during that period of time. It's just yesterday, it's not a long time ago. As I said, we inspired, we gave hope, we saw unbelievable acts of compassion, we saw extraordinary breakthroughs and innovation, we saw unbelievable heroism. Those of us involved on it, and pretty much everybody here who observed it each and every day, you went home at night, however difficult the circumstance was, you went home at night and said, how lucky we are to be able to observe what we just observed. Oh yes, there was a bad side of it, we all know that. But to see the staff do what the staff did, what the frontline people did each and every day, was something that would, if nothing else, help each of us raise the bar about what we should be doing. And then you had things like the choir, the Northwell Choir. And you're going to hear a little bit more about them later from Winnie and Lisa over here. But just think of it. In many ways, this kind of happened a little bit accidentally. But you watch television, and you watch them, when they were on television, giving oxygen to hope, raising the positive feeling among everybody, extending joy in the midst of a bad circumstance. They were transformative. And then we had another person like Sandra Lindsay. Many of you may not know Sandra, but she was the first person, a member of our staff, head of our ICU at Long Island Jewish Medical Center, who was the first person to get the COVID vaccine. December 14th, 2020. Changed the circumstance. Proved that science works. Despite the naysayers, despite the criticism, science works. And those in the audience that are involved in scientific endeavors, we should not let ourselves be debilitated by some of the criticism that we have heard about whether or not science works or not. We know it does. And we know it will continue to do. So as we know, of course, not everything worked perfectly during COVID. And there are lessons that we've all learned that we should make sure we keep in mind as we go forward. So now we look forward. We understand the deficiencies. We understand the gaps. We understand the lack of access. We understand that there are certain communities that suffered disproportionately as a result of COVID. And our job right now is to continue to imagine what we can do going forward, to continue to take risk, to continue to innovate, to continue to change, to reform how we do everything that we do and do it better. The biggest competitor is the status quo. So we can't ever just go back and say what we did is always just perfect, and therefore we can continue what we did into the future. We've got to modify it and change it and adapt it. We have to become agile. Now we have to expand access. We have to maximize the use of technology going forward without losing the human element in care delivery, which is something all of us in healthcare have to be a little bit concerned about. Technology is a tool. It helps, but it cannot substitute for the human element. We've got to keep that appropriate balance in place. We have to continue to emphasize investment in research and investment in education. Last week, I had a press conference with the city and a high school in Queens with the Chancellor of Education for the city. And we have agreed at Northwell to basically adopt 4 high schools. And I sat with the 12th graders in the high school in Queens, unbelievably diverse from every part of the world. Because let's remember, especially now that we're all immigrants, it's important to remind us of this. Everyone here is. Some of us came more recently, others came some time back. But we all have that immigrant background. An important thing for us to keep in mind as we think about the future. But with these kids, when I sat with them, unbelievably excited, unbelievably open to new possibilities. So what we're going to be doing, and I know many others do this, is to expose them to the possibilities of life today, to expose them to what they can actually engage their endeavors in going forward. So we're going to be providing internships for these kids. We're going to be have them come into our facilities so that they can see things they can't even imagine until you see it. providing hope to future generations. That's one of our responsibilities. All of us are in various stages of our careers. Some are in the beginning stages, some of us are in the middle stages, and some of us are in the latter stages. It's what you leave behind that makes the difference. And we live in an environment today, as you all know very, very well, that is pretty toxic, excessively partisan, where compromise is a dirty word, where people can't just come together and exchange and respect one another and respect their viewpoints. Disagreeing and having somebody disagree with you does not mean that that person is the enemy. So building that sense of community, we have a responsibility. And this is not somebody else's problem. This is for us to engage in. What can we be doing to build that sense of commonality, that sense of unity, that sense that we are here to make life better for everybody around us? It poses the question what we mean to each other. None of us survive or succeed purely as an individual. We succeed as a result of the combination of influences by everybody else that we come in contact with. I dare say that each and every one of you is going to be a little bit different leaving today than you were when you came in. You learned something tonight. You engage in some discussion tonight that may be microscopic, but it changes you. You're going to be different. And the other thing that I would ask people is that we begin to redefine what we mean by health. Health is a lot more than the delivery of medical care. Health is providing opportunity to people to get a job. That's health. Health is providing education, as we're doing with lots of kids. That improves health. You do something like we are going to be doing this year, where we're going to be providing tuition assistance to kids from families that never before, and nobody from that family ever before went to college. You give that kid an opportunity to go to college and you help pay tuition. You not only change the kid, you change the family. That's health. And Neil mentioned the issue of gun violence. We're in a very, very dangerous circumstance. We went public on the gun violence issue 4 years ago. I personally took a lot of criticism. I had to have security at my home, in part as a result of this. But gun violence is a public health issue. It is the leading cause of death among children and adolescents. The leading cause of death. The second leading cause of death is automobile accidents. The third leading cause of death is cancer. But the number one cause is gun violence. 13 children under the age of 17 die each day from guns. We have had more children in our children's hospitals so far this year as a result of serious gun incidents than we've had in the past 5 years combined. Something that we can't say it is somebody else's issue. This is health. And we're engaged in a major effort nationally to try to get every healthcare organization to stand up and say, we are going to be out front, use our collective influence to do something about prevention and safety. And you're going to see an ad on the TV that will be shown. Some of you may have already seen it, where we are trying to increase awareness so that families are willing and able to ask another family whether or not the gun that's in the home is locked up. You know, you send your kids to a neighbor's house, you typically ask, if they had a pool, you say, is the pool safe? You ask, do they have a cat, do they have a dog? You tell them if your kid has a peanut allergy. So we're trying to make it comfortable for people to say, you have a gun? Is it locked up? Right? Health. So everything that we're involved in, the way we talk to people, the way we behave around people, what we do with people, enhances everybody's health. So that's part of our responsibility in the healthcare field, in my view, is to get involved in a broader definition of what it is. It means changing lifestyle, behaviors, going upstream, and I could go on and on and on. So, you know, when you stand back from it, and everybody here has a story, and everybody here has their successes, but when you stand back from it, you have to say to yourself how lucky we are, how fortunate we are, how unbelievably privileged we are to be in a business where we get the chance each and every day after we wake up to do something positive for somebody else, to inspire others to do better. Our obligation and our responsibility goes way beyond what we do inside our individual organizations. Because I'm a strong believer that each of us who's in a leadership has a leadership responsibility. We have an inside role and an external role. Inside, we do everything possible to make our company successful, to give joy to our employees, to enhance employee engagement, to enhance the health of our employees. But we have an external responsibility, and that is to not be afraid to engage in those external societal issues that lead to ill health, like gun violence, like climate change issues, etc. And the fact that others may just disagree and not want to be engaged should in no way restrict our ability to get involved. So we're very fortunate. We should be unbelievably proud of what we do. And there is a quote that I will leave you with, because, I don't believe that we are not overwhelmed by challenges at all. We're always overwhelmed by opportunity. Every challenge is an opportunity. But Michelangelo, I think, was the one that came up with this quote, who said that the greatest danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and failing to achieve it. The danger for all of us is in setting our aim too low and achieving it. So what I would say to everybody, raise the bar, set high goals, and go for it. Because you know why? We have a unique role in the world. We, more than any other single group of people, make the world each and every day a better place. So be committed, be dedicated, be proud to be Irish, proud to be Irish American, but be proud about the ability that we have to make such a positive change. Again, I want to also, by the way, before I close, I want to thank Helena Nolan and for everything you do, leading us here in the United States. Again, thank Neil and thank Patricia. And as somebody once said, do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a legacy. Thank you so much.